Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. On numerous occasions, the Holy Father has made quite clear that the Sunday Mass many Catholics attend each week is not exactly what the Fathers of the Second Vatican Council had in mind. In many instances, it has become a vehicle for abuse. Now, let's be totally clear about this from the outset. The Mass, commonly called the Novus Ordo, the New Order of the Mass, is absolutely valid. When the priest consecrates the bread and wine, done properly, of course, they change into the body and blood, soul and divinity of Jesus Christ. They become Him, really, truly, and substantially. The substance of bread and wine are annihilated and replaced with our blessed Lord Himself. We call this the real presence. The problem isn't that the Mass isn't valid, it's that the continual parade of abuses during the Mass have so watered down the central focus of the Mass that in many cases, Catholics are being shortchanged on a weekly basis. There is no doubt about it. In many, many parishes across the Western world, there is a massive lack of reverence for the Blessed Sacrament, for the Mass, and for much of what makes Catholicism Catholic. Practically every Catholic has had the experience of walking out of Mass and wondering to themselves, what was that? The problem with priests offering creative Mass is that it betrays a lack of faith and a rupture from the past. There's an old saying in the Catholic Church, lex orandi, lex credendi, which is shorthand for the law of prayer is the law of belief. In other words, if your prayer life is wounded, your faith life will be as well. The Mass is the public prayer of the Church, the highest of our public prayer. To have it so disregarded all over the world will have a devastating effect on the faith life of the Church. Benedict has rightly recognized this cancer and has set out to stop it. He said, quote, "The Church stands and falls with the liturgy. For that reason, the true celebration of the sacred liturgy is the center of any renewal of the Church whatsoever," end quote. So, in 2007, he issued a decree that the Latin Mass no longer be impeded anywhere in the world. Now, for many of the Vatican II generation, yours truly included, this seemed to come out of left field. We were all taught continually that the Latin Mass was a dead thing of the past, and we had modernized the Mass, complete with guitars and talking and shaking hands and rock bands and tambourines and dancers and thousands of Eucharistic ministers scurrying all over the sanctuary and receiving the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ in our hands and not having to worry about such antiquated things like fasting before Mass or being in a state of grace following sacramental private confession or even genuflecting on the way into the pew. Heck, all that old stuff was, well, stuffy and wasn't hip. We needed to get with it, although no one ever quite really explained just exactly what it was. The Mass of the Saints for hundreds and hundreds of years had been jettisoned for a Mass that took after a few years looked more like a Protestant service than anything remotely Catholic. And my gosh, all that Latin, that was all gone too. It was much better to listen to Father Freelance make up half the words of the Mass as he went along rather than to have suffer through some of that Latin. The only problem with all this here was the Pope, suddenly restoring something that everyone under 50 or even 60 for that matter thought was long gone and outlawed. And then the uproar came. Bishops and priests all around the globe began protesting, some very quietly, some very publicly. Actually, they began doing that before the Pope made it official. While there were some valid concerns about bringing back a form of the Mass that many might be unfamiliar with, one suspects that the almost violent and high degree of indignation bespoke some other motive. Could it be that many in the Church actually liked that the tabernacle is often hard to locate, that most Catholics have no idea what the real presence is, that the line between priest and laity is greatly obscured, that the sanctuary is not regarded as a holy place? In short, could it be that many like the idea of the Catholic Church morphing into a Protestant-looking religion that prays like Protestants and even believes like Protestants? If you sit through many adult education classes or RCIA programs or Bible studies offered in numerous parishes, if you go to Catholic college or university masses or prayer meetings, you might begin to wonder. Now, this is not to say that a reverently offered non-Latin Mass where everyone in the congregation is attentive and plugged into the sacred mysteries unfolding before them can't be spiritually beneficial and uplifting and reinforcing. Of course it can. In fact, that's the point. It's just that That's not the usual experience for rank-and-file Catholics week after week. It's often a grab bag of some reverence mixed with head-scratching, wondering why we're singing Protestant hymns or changing the words around of the responsorial psalm to make them gender-neutral and politically correct inclusive. All these abuses in the Mass have caused for many Catholics a rupture from the past, which has resulted in a weakening of their faith. Benedict means to put an end to this. His pontificate will not see the end of the abuses, but he has given a clear signal that the abuses will see an end, and sooner than many will like. Tomorrow, Pope Benedict's attempts to bring the sheep back into the fold. I'm Michael Voris.
Please help us keep delivering these kinds of messages that so desperately need to be heard and acted on. Join RealCatholicTV.com today as a premium subscriber. Become immersed in the faith established by Jesus Christ. The Catholic Church is the only hope against evil because that is its God-given mission. As our Lord said, apart from me, you can do nothing. Join RealCatholicTV.com today as a premium subscriber and come to learn and love Christ more deeply.